Moving on to the regular agenda now, I'll ask the clerk to perform the reading on item number 2, please.
A resolution amending the fiscal year 2010-2011 budget related to Public Works Building renovations project.
Our Public Works Director, Andy Knoll, all rested up from the snowstorm.
Yes, thank you. And first, thank you for your kind words about the snow removal. And we do dearly appreciate the equipment that you provided the department. It helps us greatly. This is a project that's been in the works for a couple of years. We finally received bids a couple of weeks ago with a low bid coming in a little bit above what we had originally expected. And now we're coming before the board to authorize all the funding that we need to construct this project. This project, as we have it envisioned now, will receive funding from 3 separate sources. One will be the Capital Sales Tax Fund, one will be the Sanitary Sewer Fund, and the third will be from the General Fund. I'll start with the Capital Sales Tax Fund. What we're going to do there is we're basically going to accelerate 3 projects and then capture funding that we did not spend in the last fiscal year on the capital improvements. It'll be for remodeling. There was a project for remodeling offices, a project for replacing the back wall. There's a project to replace the roof, and then a washout bay with a connection to fill the sewer jet. Those 3 items come up to that just shy of that $105,000. Then the Sanitary Sewer Fund, we believe it's prudent for the Sanitary Sewer Fund to contribute to this project because a big portion of that facility is used to house equipment that we need to maintain the sanitary sewer lines. The combination sewer cleaning truck, the jet truck, and then also the TV camera truck as well. So all 3 of those are inside of the Public Works facility. They have water on them all the time, so we have to keep that garage bay area heated. So that's a fairly big expense and a lot of the reasons we're doing some of this project as well. So we think it's fair for the Sanitary Sewer Fund to contribute as well. The $200,000 is budgeted as a capital replacement item in the current year budget. So that is a budgeted item, but we will be using all of the capital replacement fund to accomplish the project. And then the final portion that we need to construct the project would come from the general fund. Several years ago, I believe $188,000 was set aside for this project. I believe it was from one-time funds, and it was just what was left over after allocating those one-time funds. At the time, we weren't sure that it would be enough to complete all the projects, and as we found out, to complete the project so that we don't have to come back to it in 5 years or 10 years, it is drastically more than that. However, the current general fund has the required 17% reserve balance and an additional unappropriated fund balance. So above and beyond the 17% that's required, there's over $1 million available to the city for any project that the board deems necessary and appropriate for those funds. So we're requesting to use a total of $370,000 of those unappropriated surplus to also complete this project. So that would give us a total funding of $675,000 to complete the project. Of that $675,000, $601,010 will be used for the contractor for the base bid and alternate bids. $46,000 will be used for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And that furniture, fixtures, and equipment contains such items as a phone system, sign shop storage racks, server for the building, office chairs and desks for a superintendent's office, supervisor's office, and then also the reception office and the sewer camera office. It'll provide an electronic time clock, an alarm system, an electronic key card system for the building. It'll provide appliances for the kitchen / break room / conference room / break room, multi-purpose room. It'll provide for tool storage cages, some window treatments, some blinds for the building itself, some break room tables, some break room chairs, a pallet jack, some warehouse shelving. So it provides for quite a few things in that furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It also provides, the $675,000 also provides for temporary office expenses. which will be for office trailer rental. We have $2,700 budgeted for office trailer rental, the delivery and setup of those trailers, a temporary electric hookup, an entrance deck and roof, because we'll have 2 trailers to provide us enough space. So there'll be a deck between it, so you have to walk up one set of stairs and then you can cross that deck to get to either trailer. It'll provide for temporary trailer sanitation, because we won't be hooked up to the sanitary sewer, so that provides for a service to provide potable water and sanitary sewer disposal. Provides for phone and data at the location. Provides for some funds for a lot settlement. We currently are using some property that's not actually within our property boundary. We're negotiating with the adjacent owner. There's a retaining wall that separates, that's about 8 to 9 foot separation difference. So it's infeasible for him to use it, but it's not actually our property, and we want to resolve that issue with this project as well. It'll provide for storage containers that we'll utilize to move a lot of the equipment that we store in the current building. So we'll take it out and provide that in the storage containers. And then also some water coolers in the basically construction trailers for our temporary housing. So that takes care of our temporary office expenses. And then it leaves us just $6,300 for potential change orders. I would be ecstatic if it's only $6,000, and I hope it's only $6,000, because we're not, we can see all of the items that we're working on. So I don't anticipate a large sum of change orders unless we make a drastic change somewhere along the line, which I don't anticipate. But that's a pretty small percentage of an overall construction budget for change orders, but we do have some in there. As I said, we received 17 bids. We think we got a very competitive bid, and here to answer any other questions that you may have.
Very thorough report, sir. Thank you. Are there questions of Mr. Knoll?
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Ms. Melson has a motion to approve, seconded by Ms. White. Discussion before we vote. Mr. Van Buskirk.
Well, this is not just a little bit over what we anticipated. It's almost $250,000 over what was anticipated, and over what came before the municipal committee. We're talking about an increase just in the construction part of this of $225,010. That's pretty big. In fact, when you look at the total cost of the project, it's over a third, increase in the project cost. I think we need to step back and take another look at this. I don't think it's, I think we're going to spend too much money, and maybe there's ways to cut costs in the project. I know that it's needed. I know that there are repairs needed to that building. I know that it's important, and I've toured it, and I understand that. But I think I'm not sure why we came up with that much of an increase over what we had anticipated, how that happened. Apparently something was drastically underestimated as far as construction cost. And we're talking about a total project cost of $675,000 now. So not sure what happened, but I don't believe I would be able to support this. I think we need to step back, take a look at it, reevaluate, possibly find some additional funding if it's available to us, and see if we can maybe scale back the project in some way. Again, it's needed, but I'm not sure we need this much. Thank you.
Mr. Knoll, would you please respond to the amount of overage that Mr. Van Buskirk just addressed?
Currently, when we arrived at the approximate construction cost of the $476,000, that was through the assistance of the architect and a contractor. In that, those were preliminary bids based on a preliminary set of drawings. Then as we went through, we've identified some of the things that have changed since those preliminary set of plans have came through. One is the roof system got a little bit, got more complicated, where we had to remove some block along the edge of the building to accommodate a roof system that would be the least expensive option for us. Then also, they identified that they think they just got a bad electrical subcontractor cost estimate, the contractor that we utilized. They also submitted on the project. They were not the low bid. And the price that they received for the electrical work at bid was right at $100,000 more than what they had received for the preliminary estimate that we were utilizing to compare new building cost versus a renovation cost. So the project did get a little bit more complicated between the preliminary project and the final bid. However, I think we still got a very a competitive project at this point. So,
Was there an estimate done, or engineer's estimate done prior to the bid?
that was with the architect, and we did not actually complete one after we had the preliminary plans. We did not go back and complete that. We didn't anticipate that large of a change. We thought it might be $20,000, a little higher, because there was some asbestos identified as well since the preliminary plans, but we didn't quite anticipate that big of a change between.
I recall some discussion about the roof being much beyond or much worse than they had initially perceived also. Is that
Correct. It requires a complete tear off of the roof. Can't overlay what was there. Then they also had to remove several courses of block down each side of the building to provide for a gutter system off the sides instead of sheeting it all the way to the back of the building. And then there were also found some asbestos in some of the coping, I believe it's called, on the roof system that they had to remove. So the roof system got more complicated, and as well as the electrical system, I think, was just a underestimation by a subcontractor that the contractor was utilizing at the time. Because without knowing that this is the actual bid, sometimes it's just they'll give you their best guesstimate, and unfortunately this time it wasn't very close when it was all said and done on the electrical side.
Ms. Melson, question?
Yeah, I agree that it's a lot of money, but that building is in horrible condition. And over the last 12 years, I can't tell you how many times it's been discussed. It's been put off. Oh, wait, we need to reevaluate it. And if we wait any longer, the cost is not going to go down. It's just going to increase. So, I think the time is now to fix that building. It's not in good shape, and I feel really bad having employees have to go to work there every day.
Mr. Kramer?
Well, and to kind of build on that, when I was younger, so many years ago, I did some construction work, and a lot of times when you tear out a wall, you find something that's much worse than what you originally anticipated, and the costs go up. But by then, you're committed, and we're in a situation, as Ms. Melson said, where this building's in bad shape, and it needs to be repaired. When I came onto the board, and I've mentioned this before, we had the opportunity to tour different facilities, and it was very humbling to go into that building, particularly. They were making signs in the attic. I think the roof up in the attic area where they made signs was about 5.5 foot, so you had to duck, and it's not good working conditions, and I would ask my fellow board members what kind of signal that it sends to the people of the community that we're not willing to take care of our property, and here's an opportunity to step up. Make this building right, give these people a better work environment. I have no problem supporting this.
Mr. Ertz, you're up next.
Yeah, a few comments. I'm glad you found the money. It does look like this was, you got a lot of bidders. So you feel pretty confident of the price we got. I believe we've all looked at the plans. It's not what I would call a palace you're building there by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be a building, a much needed building. I imagine there's some hidden savings in that. The way that is right now, it almost looks like you could have a lawsuit from the dungeon conditions that you have there, almost with the lighting and the electrical work and the holes in the walls and I imagine there'll be some energy savings also from this that on the backside, that could probably help pay for some of this over future years, which brings up, how long do you think this building will last us with this type of a rehab?
With this type of rehab, I think it should last us until we have to come back and repair the roof. Because we're using durable products for the interior walls, masonry block walls, so in lieu of wood framing, because there is some water in this building just from snow melting and us walking around. So I think it'll be a very durable building. So
That's a 10 to 15-year warranty on the roof then?
I'm not exactly sure of what the warranty period is on that roof.
But you got a 50, 60, 70-year building, because it looks like it's probably been there longer than that, what's there, since it's been remodeled. It is an eyesore. It's one of the first things I think they gave us a tour when I became alderman of that building, and it was, oh my, what is going on here, Obviously, it's nothing compliant right now. So I agree it has to be done. It is sad that it comes in so high. I can trust from these bids, it looks like it's, we've done a good job on venting to try to find the lowest possible way of doing things. And I believe you've also cut back some of your wish list in doing this. It looks like we're keeping the doors and keeping some things that we thought at one time we were going to be able to replace, which probably would have been nice to replace, but we're keeping a lot of it. So, it needs to be done, and they need to have a better place to work, and I'm willing to bite the bullet.
Okay, we're still on our first round of questions. Mr. Lightfoot?
Couple of questions. What's the estimated time frame for the total rehab?
We're estimating between 150 to 180 days from notice to proceed.
It seems like the temporary offices is awful expensive for that amount of time. It seems like there's a lot of empty space down around that area in some of the old buildings. Was there any consideration to trying to utilize some of the empty buildings that are right around the corner there? Yes,
we actually talked with forgetting the manufacturer of the cabinets, Shamrock. We talked with Shamrock if they had a building. They have it's just a vacant space that they would have to vacate, and just didn't have any offices in it, so that didn't work. There's those white buildings that are just down the street on Railroad Street on the kind of the gravel portion of road. All of those are full. Then we also looked across the street. There is some space there that has offices, but it's not well segregated. We would have to move between other tenants' storage items, and there was no parking at that facility. So we looked around the area to try to stay close to our equipment, but we couldn't find any place that would really work well for us without, for the type of work that we do with muddy boots and shoes coming in and out and dust, and then also security for us and the other tenants and parking. So we just couldn't find anything else in that nearby adjacent area that would keep us close to our equipment so that we could do that. So yes, we did look at that. And keep in mind that that temporary office expense is more than just the trailers. It provides for all of those other equipment that we need as well. So just the trailer rental itself is $2,700. But there's shipping containers that we'll need either way. So, but yeah, we looked at as all the alternatives that we thought we could utilize. Okay. The $200,000 that's going to come from the sanitary sewer fund, could you explain that to me a little better? You said that was a budgeted item for capital replacement of other equipment? Yes, it's for capital replacement of basically any item. It could have been for pipes, could have been for equipment, and in this case, we want to utilize it for building. So if we were to have, with our dilapidated sewers in some parts of town, if we were to have a major collapse or something, this money wouldn't affect? Correct. We would probably have to utilize some of the fund balance in the sanitary sewer fund if we had a major collapse or anything that we couldn't take care of. Because we do have some other smaller fund items to take care of any miscellaneous repairs. So we do have other items within the budget for sanitary sewer for those, but not nearly to that level. Thank you.
Mr. Mock?
Yeah, it seems like I've got most of the questions I had Mr. Lightfoot already asked. Thank you. Yeah, I understand this is a priority project, no doubt about that. And it's been several years. Yeah, I can go back several years. This has been a need project for several years. Engineer's estimate, yeah, it missed. But I've seen engineer's estimates coming way high too. Itself, I really did have that concern on these temporary office spaces, this and that, what I was looking at also. I had a concern about looking at furniture, fixtures, and equipment also, and the base construction price. I understand, I remember hearing that, hey, in these times we ought to be getting some pretty good prices. That doesn't happen. You know, but these prices aren't going to get any better. So I say we go ahead and move forward with this.
Mr. Azure.
To take a look at all three dimensions of the project here, first of all, it is what it is. It's a building that's needed to be repaired for a long time, and we put it off and put it off. Unfortunately, if I were to think that we might relook at it, I would think that the question is whether or not you're going to replace the whole building or try to refurbish it. And the budget being what it is, the income that the city has, it's not very likely that we could even afford to do that. In looking at some of the projects that I've seen over the past 10 years, such as the old wooden bridge and even building the new EMS building that we put up, and some of the other bridge projects that were very expensive, it seemed like that we are always, didn't hit the budget right. It wasn't measured accurately. I do agree with what some of the other aldermen said. I do remember, for example, when we looked at the original project of the wooden bridge, we ended up going back and redoing that because we thought that the project as it was written down was not one that was really suitable, might not last very long. We might have to go back and readdress it. And of course, that's Public Works' job to come up with a project that is going to last, not going to be temporary, that's going to be workable, and that makes it worthwhile, the investment that we're going to be putting into, and not have to go back even 8 years or 9 years and have to put more money back into the building. That means not doing temporary things. I think one thing that does bother me just a little bit, and that is that when this doesn't happen very often, but when we get bids or estimate projects that we miss it by that much, when you consider the people that are doing the estimation are professionals, people who are experienced, they've been in that work for years, they know what they're doing, you wonder a little bit why we're so far off the mark. And it does, I think, put elected officials in, a little uneasiness to see, because we do rely on your expertise, and we'd like to see things, at least I can speak for myself only personally, I'd like to see things a little more accurate than $250,000 different for a project that we're doing like this, because we're not putting a new building up. But I do concur that we do have to address it. We can't put it off any longer because we do have working conditions for the people who are employed by the city of Raytown, and they have a very important job to get done, and it's got to be addressed. So if we are able to look at ways to make sure that the project that we are addressing will be the very best project for the money that we're going to put into it, and that means it's going to last long enough that we don't have to go back and be spending more money later or finding out that we're in a situation that's not adequate. I really would not want that to happen.
We're still in the first round. I'm going to weigh in on this myself. Looking at the 17 bids that are here, they're all very tightly grouped, which is what you want. As to stepping back and taking another look at it, if that were to open up the bidding again, I can assure you that the $16,000 that the number one and number two are off now, that number will disappear if not grow greater. So I would certainly not encourage rebidding it at that point. It does need to happen. This board, this administration, are custodians of the citizens' assets. This is a major asset in this community that's been forgotten about way too long, and it needs to be taken care of, not only for our employees' safety, not only for their well-being in that facility, but it's something the citizens should be proud of as well. This is their building. We need to take care of their buildings and their properties. Yes, it's disappointing that the engineer's estimate was off. It's my understanding that they found additional things, though, from the time that estimate was done to the time the contractors bid it. So I'm glad that they found it rather than coming back as a change order later on. So we're on top of that. So we got bids based on what they found after that estimate was done. So I think, my opinion, if I get to vote on this, I would vote to go ahead and continue with the process. We're now in the second round, and the second round goes to Mr. Van Buskirk first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree that we are custodians of the people's property, but we're also custodians of the people's money and dollars, and we need to be very careful about how we spend those. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with anything that's been said here tonight. This is a project that needs to be done. I think it's important that we rehab that building. I've personally toured it, and I understand that. I guess all I'm saying is that sometimes you need to step back and take a breath, and it doesn't mean that we would even have to go out for new bids, but maybe just take a look at other potential funding. I know there might be state assistance or federal assistance for something like this, and I'm not sure how thorough we've looked into that. I know there was some discussion about maybe some assistance because of the money that we would save through energy savings, and that there might be some assistance there. And I'm assuming nothing happened relative to that. Something was mentioned earlier about scaling back some things in the project. Did that actually happen from what was initially? I know there's you talked about some additional things relative to the roof, but was there some scaling back of other parts of the project that initially were part of it?
Yes, there was. We originally thought that we wanted to construct a mezzanine level to mimic what we currently had, but that mezzanine level was estimated to be about a $45,000 to $60,000 expense. So that was one item that we said, okay, we will eliminate that mezzanine level because it had limited headroom, and we thought we could, well, we know we can find additional floor space. We'll just have to be more efficient with how we store items and what we do store, and make sure that we're not storing things long-term that we'd have no anticipation of utilizing again. So there are some things that we did scale back on. That was the biggest item that I can think of right off the top of my head, was just that item.
And I guess, I think delaying this a little bit is not going to kill the project, and that's really all I'm suggesting, that maybe we need to step back, take a breath, take another look at it, see if there are areas where we could scale back a little bit, see if there are other areas where we might potentially receive some funding.
Very good. Mr. Kramer?
Thank you.
Well, on that note, and Mr. Knoll didn't touch on it, briefly, if I remember, in municipal committee, we did touch on ERA funding and stuff like that, and there was none available. I know staff has been very diligent in the past. We've got many projects citywide that we've received grant funding for, low interest loans, ERA funding, all provided to you by staff who've diligently gone out there and written for that and achieved that. And unfortunately, in this instance, we're not able to. And I would like to bring everybody back to a building that many of us that were on the board got a lot of complaints about, and that was the old First Baptist building. And you take that our existing Public Works building, and you set it where First Baptist was. I ask you, how many phone calls are you going to get? It's not evident where it's at because we drive over the bridge and we don't look down. But it's down there, and all you got to do is drive by and see it, and see the condition of it, walk inside of it. And I just ask you, how many phone calls would you get if it were sitting in a green space right now?
Okay, very good. We've had a lot of discussion. Is there any more before we vote? We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Mock, you've got the cup up there.
Yeah, after all this, has there been a structural engineer check that building yet?
We did not have a structural engineer. It's actually a structural steel building that used to utilize overhead cranes in there to move equipment and material around on the inside. So it's actually a structural steel frame, and that structural steel frame is in good condition. So I'm more than confident that that structural steel frame is in great shape. The actual masonry walls on the outside are not a load-bearing item. It's the structural steel columns on the inside and then structural steel frame above.
Maybe it's common sense, but what about getting an engineer's report on this building? I mean, is that too far-fetched? Or, I mean, this building's old enough, and it's just getting older every day.
Well, that's when we first started this project, we had the architect look at what the alternatives would be from renovating the existing building or tearing it down and constructing a new one that would be smaller in footprint size, but would provide us basically our minimum requirements. And when we went through that process, there was at least, I believe it was almost $200,000 difference between renovation and constructing a new facility. And that had some question marks with it because we weren't sure about the foundation system. We don't know if we could, reutilizing the current foundation was a real stretch. We weren't sure that we'd be able to do that. And once we start tearing it down, we just don't know what we would find underneath the existing building from unknown conditions and items such as that. So we felt more confident about the renovations versus the building a new structure. And that and some of the more floor space that we have so we can line up all of our salt trucks inside before the storm so it takes us less time to respond. So it just provides us more advantages having that square footage of the existing building over a smaller new building. So the architect went through and evaluated all of those items, so we still think the existing facility will serve us very well.
Okay. Oh, same architect that did the engineer's estimate?
Well, he did not prepare it. That was the contractor gave him that estimate. So the contractor was way off on the actual estimate originally, and plus some of the changes from the preliminary set to the final set. So.
Okay.
Further discussion before we vote? Call the vote, please.
Alderman Melson,
Yes.
Alderman White,
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk,
No?
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll move to item number 3, please.
Mr. Mayor, if the council would permit, staff would note that the title in 3 places in the bill, there was an inadvertent typographical error, and the amount should be $601,010. So unless there was objection, I would suggest the city clerk read it instead of not to exceed 601 to read $601,010. And the alternative, if we read it as is, we'd need to entertain a motion to amend the title and bill in those 3 respects after reading.
So again, if the clerk reads that in as $601,010, then we're according to Hoyle.
That would be fine, and that would be consistent with the RBA rebart, the numbering you received. So there should be no
Any
surprise.
objection on the board? No objection apparent. Okay, please read accordingly.
a resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with R.L. Phillips Construction, Inc. for the Public Works Building renovations project in an amount not to exceed $601,010.
Mr. Knoll, anything else to add on this subject, sir?
No, this will provide for the base bid and 2 alternates. One is the trench drain system, and then a deduct for a mechanically fastened roof instead of a hot torch system where it's melted to the roof. And then I will point out, I did have one error on the RBA. We are not replacing the west wall. We're replacing the east wall. The east wall is the one that leads out into the rest of the yard area. So that's the one that's the corrugated metal with the many holes in it. So the west wall would be the front face that you see from the street. So we're not replacing that one. So.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Knoll?
Second.
Ms. White's got the motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Kramer. Discussion before we vote on item number 3. Mr. Van Buskirk.
Well, as I stated before, the renovation needs to be done. And since the funding has been approved, I will support moving forward with the project and accepting the bid. And I hope it keeps us going for a long time. I hope it's successful, and that as far as many years of service for our Public Works Department. Thank you.
Very good. Other questions or comments? None appearing. Call the vote, please.
Alderman White,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Nelson,
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Item number 4, please.
a resolution amending the fiscal year 2010-2011 budget by transferring $1,079,713 from unappropriated surplus to various funds to accommodate prior year encumbrances which were approved in fiscal year 2009-2010 but not expended during such fiscal year.
Mr. Wilmoth, our Finance Director, anything to add, sir?
Not too much. This was taken to the Finance Committee at their last meeting and approved. This is pretty much just routine housekeeping measures to reappropriate programs that were started in the last fiscal year but not completed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of Mr. Wilmoth? Mr. Lightfoot?
I'd just like to make a motion to approve.
Mr. Lightfoot's got the motion to approve, seconded by Ms. Melson. Discussion before we vote. Call the vote, please.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Nelson,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Alderman White,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman